What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of PB's Digging Deeper podcast with co-host Mr. Arrow Bremer in the building.
Yep.
And the one, the only Chris Bogusis. What's up, brother man?
What's up, man? I am coming to you from the future, if you believe that. Friday here.
I've always thought about that kind of thing. You know, I'm like, it's Friday for you, and it's technically Thursday still for me. So technically,
I got all the lotto numbers. Oh yeah,
that's pretty wild. It's pretty wild.
Doesn't work for me though. That's the problem because I don't have anyone in the future to give them to me.
I was gonna say maybe the roles would be switched real quick, so that way you have a future to like I do right now. Yeah.
Exactly.
Pretty wild. What's going on, everybody? We got a lot of people in the building this evening. Mr. Don Went, what's up, dude? Stephen Bertrand, Tina, Paul. Oh, my goodness gracious. There's a lot of people in here. Too many to name off. Canine Preacher, Mr. Chris Hayes in the building, Gad Z, Alan Cooper, Fred. Jeez,
wait, Gads is awake? Oh,
yeah,
my God. Gads, you're awake.
He said I can only imagine. He says it's probably late in the evening for Chris. I'd imagine it's late over there in your neck of the woods.
That's 12 p.m.
Noon?
Yeah.
Ah, shit. That's perfect timing, man. Holy
No,
crap.
look. It's bright outside.
Nice in daylight. Nice. Hell yeah. All right. Well, let's go ahead and kick this podcast off. So, first and foremost, man, it's good to finally meet you. Our last podcast. Obviously, I was sick to the bone. We had other hosts to host that podcast. Shout out to Sergio, man. You cheesing, bro, was perfect. It was right on the money. You teasing the whole time.
Exactly the right amount of smiling.
Yeah, it's actually pretty funny because we were talking about making a shirt with Sergio's face as a cartoon because this guy
buy that for sure.
Seriously. No, it's pretty hilarious. The guy is definitely uplifting. He's posting every Friday, every Thursday, every Friday. Hope everybody has a good weekend. You know, it's just
the first time I met him, he pulls up in his truck and rolls down the window, and Eye of the Tiger is playing. I was like, "What?" I was like, "It's perfect." I'm not surprised at all.
Yeah.
You need that T-shirt, just a cartoon version of his head, big beard, big grin that just says "Grin of the winners." That's the shirt.
Oh, seriously. No, he's a great guy. Sergio, love you, bro. But yeah, so anyways, so first and foremost, what I wanted to get on as far as the topics go is what's going on in the community these days. You know, what are the changes that we're seeing? Some of the new up and coming equipment and, you know, the way things are just rocking and rolling with, you know, prospecting and mining. I mean, we've seen in the last couple of years with the whole COVID situation, a massive uptick in prospecting. I mean, would you agree with that?
Yep.
It's pretty awesome to see.
We are now in a situation where the places that we were going with incredibly difficult to get to ground and now have prospectors on them. So for like 5-6 years, no one out in these spots. You would never, like, trails that aren't used, really hard to get to, unknown areas that people just didn't go. And now every week we're seeing prospectors there. And I think it's just an influx of people who may not have been aware of the hobby that were already doing outdoors activities like hunting or camping or whatever it might be that they were into. They were already that sort of adventurous kind of outdoors person, and they've now been introduced to it. I think that uptick's come, like you said, because COVID really showed a lot of people how fragile society is in terms of it, you know, your job and the security that you might feel you have is not necessarily there, and digging free money out of the ground is definitely appealing for that.
Oh, for sure, especially with you know, especially with the way that the economy started shifting. You know, like you just said, that was perfect example. People who mountain bike, people who dirt bike, people who you know, there's just so many different types of varieties of hobbies that people already do. And COVID, you know, with what was going on with the economy and things like that, I think progressed all of the folks that already go out and do these things to go and bring a pan with them. You know what I mean? And really try something different and something new. And again, you hit it right on the head. I think a lot of folks that just started getting into it truly don't know the rules and regulations, and it's not to say that they you know, they're arrogant, this, that, and the other. They don't care about the rules. That a lot of the cases, it's not the case. They just simply didn't know. You know, it's their first time out. They brought a pin with them. Little do they know, the place that they're prospecting at, you can't do that. You can't prospect at this place or that place.
And that's, I suppose when you compare it to something like, if you compare prospecting to something like hunting, where you need a firearms license, you need a hunting permit, you might need game tags, it's sort of obvious that you would need some kind of permitting in with that, because you are handling firearms. You're going into a public space to discharge that firearm. You are actively pursuing, like, killing an animal. So there's there's an obvious safety aspect to it. Whereas prospecting, it hardly seems like you need to regulate digging a hole.
Right.
So I can see how people can get easily confused by something like that. There's been a lot of that happening in Australia. Victoria, where I live, has probably the loosest prospecting laws in Australia. So we've got a lot more freedom to use equipment such as high bankers and trommels and sleuth boxes. Like, we can use all that stuff. The only thing that's outlawed is dredging. That's the only thing we're not allowed to do.
Right.
And we have limitations on the equipment that we can use. Like, I can't take a bobcat into the bush and use an excavator. Right? I'd love to.
What are you doing? Oh, I'm just digging over here, digging a little hole with my bobcat.
Yeah, that's it. So, we've got pretty good prospecting laws, I would argue, in Victoria. But as you go north through New South Wales and Queensland, the regulations really tighten up. And so a lot of people watch videos, say, on my channel, and then they think the regulations are universal. They don't realize that those regulations change from state to state. And there's been definitely a lot of confusion around that. And I see that on the forums all the time because, like, my channel is very Googleable and it just comes up. Like, you'll see people saying, oh, I'm in Queensland and bogus prospecting uses the high banker, so why can't I? And they just don't understand that each state is governed differently with what rules and regulations. And I think it's a level of personal responsibility too. We live in a society now that information is so easily accessible. You really have no excuse on trying to figure this stuff out for yourself. 30 seconds on Google, you should be able to find the laws for your state for pretty much anything.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think the biggest, and I'm glad we got to talking about this specific topic because it is a very, very important one. I think a lot of miners and prospectors, that have been in the game for many, many years, they already know. But for the new guys that are watching and things like that, the biggest thing is to do your research before you go out to a random place. Go out if you see claim markers. I mean, there's so many different things you can do in today's day and age to really figure out whether this place is claimed, it's a private claim, public, pay to dig, things like that. The biggest issue that we're starting to see as an uptick, this was one of the topics that we wanted to discuss, was claim jumpers. People that know good and well other folks' claims. You can go online. And here in the States, there's many websites where you can see if a claim has been claimed and, if it's all legal and good to go. And even then, there's one extra step of protection for people to protect themselves, and that's the claim markers. You see a claim marker.
Yeah.
Go for
it. Deep dive time, I guess. How do we even begin with this?
I was gonna say, I think I know what you're gonna say, and I'm pretty much sure, but go for it, Chris.
Locks only keep honest people out, right?
Yeah.
So there's. Give me a minute. Gotta get my thoughts in line. Locks only keep honest people out. If I wanted to break into your house, I'd just smash a window. Your house is full of windows. Everyone's house is full of windows. I can get in 2 seconds, right? Just throw a rock through it. Just kick it in. It's not hard to get into someone's house and take their stuff and do wrong by them. It's very easy. Right. So what's the difference? Why do we have locks on the door if it's that easy? Why do we have them? Why are they there? What's the point? Well, it's to keep honest people out, right? Because someone who's willing to do you harm, willing to take what you have earned and brought with your own money and put the time and effort into, is going to do it regardless of the defenses that you put in front of them to prevent them from doing that, right? That's why we have bank robberies today. That's why we have fraud. That's why we've got all those things. There are laws against it. You can get jail time, but it still happens, right? Because those people have a different set of moral ethical codes that they live by. Now, the reason you have a lock on your door is to stop an honest person. And what that means is that there are people out there who have worked every day of their life extremely hard, and they've worked for everything that they've got but presented with an opportunity to accelerate that, especially if someone's been suffering or going through a hard period of time,
right,
they're going to take advantage of that. Most people would. And this comes down to the idea of, like, do you hand in a $5 note you find on the ground when you're walking down a footpath to the police, or do you just put it in your pocket? I'd say that most people would just put it in their pocket.
right, right.
Because
Well,
it's almost a victimless crime, right? So now, if we swing that ideology to claim jumping, there are people who are willing to do the right thing. So they file a claim and they get their paperwork in order, and then they own the mineral rights to that ground. That is the equivalent of putting a lock on your house, right? So most people, you, me, we look at that and go, that guy's done the work, he's invested the money, that's his minerals, he's allowed to do what he wants, and I am going to respect that.
Right.
But going back to what we're talking about with the whole COVID thing, is if you take someone who has just picked up prospecting, who has no idea about the regulation, right, and then sees a sign that says there's gold here,
right,
and they're trying real hard to figure out how to do this gold prospecting stuff, that's a very inviting and tempting thing to go and do. And I can understand it because it's not necessarily done in a nefarious way. It's not someone who's got a 6-inch dredge who's going to take it down and rip the whole creek bed out over a weekend while this guy is away and take all his gold and whatnot. It's a guy that's probably the acceptable one. The acceptable one is a guy who's probably got a pan, maybe a river sluice, and he goes down there and he runs 10 buckets of gravel, and he finds a couple of grams of gold. Right? Yeah, it's wrong. It's annoying. It's frustrating for the claim jumper, but ultimately it doesn't do them any damage. And this is where community education comes through, right? It's about instilling ethics. It's about instilling ethics in people, and that's a very difficult thing to do because you're requiring someone to take personal responsibility. They have to have a level of empathy and be able to project that onto someone else. That's why I don't break into someone's house. Because I look at that person's house and go, well, that means they've got to replace a window and they worked really hard for it, and I don't know if their kids are sick, and, like, you know what I mean? Like, there is a level of empathy that comes naturally to some people that doesn't to others. And that's why you get people that are willing to kick in someone else's front door or go onto their claim and dredge it.
Right. And that's the thing, you know, with today's day and age, you know, that's why there was a whole philosophy on folks who would find a very good piece of ground and they would hold it near and dear to their heart and wouldn't let even their own mother know about it for hundreds of years. So in that aspect, I totally agree 110%. I also see a whole different transition with the community as well. You know, more people are wanting to have, you know, the newcomers come and really truly see how things work, how things operate, how to find gold, how to pan black sands, you know. And so I think our responsibility, mine, Arrow's, your responsibility, is to promote something like that as much as we possibly can, you know, and really try to say, hey, look, if you just get a hold of the claim owner, you just get a hold of someone, they'll give you one of the best experiences that you could ever possibly imagine. And now you have somewhere legally and somewhere where you don't have to watch over your back. You can go and mine, you can go and pan, you can go and there's so many people in today's community more than ever that are more than willing to bring someone out and show them the ropes. Now, mind you, there's a flip side.
That's the manner in which it's done.
Right.
I advocate for joining a club when you're brand new to it, because you're going to get a lot of the education, the contact, and opportunity to be on gold-bearing ground with people who know how to find gold.
Yep.
And then once you have an understanding, do as you will.
Yeah.
I've been pushing for people to join the Prospecting Miners Association in Victoria, so it's called the PMAV. It's very similar to the GPAA. We don't have a national body. We have state-wise bodies that advocate for miners. They lobby. They do all that sort of crap. So it just exactly what you said, because if you're new, it costs you $50 and you get to go to club meetups and they'll show you how to do setup for your equipment, detecting knowledge, so on and so forth. They give you everything you need to know. And it's done in a way that you can pretty much guarantee that you're going to get the correct information straight off the bat. I suppose here in Australia, at the very least, the GPAA seems a little bit more advanced than the PMAV in respect to how it manages its memberships. I feel like Australia has always lagged behind a lot in terms of how polished any organisation or activity is. So, for instance, like I can only use an example like movies. If you're watching a good quality Australian movie that, say, Australians would like, it's a lot rougher in its cuts and its edits and the way it's presented than what a polished Hollywood movie is. Now, that suits our culture over here, and it works really well for us, but it doesn't translate so well overseas. And I can see a lot of potential for taking some of the stuff that's done overseas and integrating it in over here. And part of that is the whole PMAV thing. I feel like there's a really important political aspect that the PMAV is doing, which is making sure that we don't lose land to lockups and national parks and so on and so forth. Like they're really good at doing that, but it's become wholly focused around that, and it's sort of off-putting to get someone to join one of those clubs, because you're trying to explain to someone, hey, this is going to be great for you. You're going to get all this experience. You're going to have the benefit of people who've got years and decades of knowledge, and you're going to have the opportunity to be put right on the gold so you know that you're in the right areas. You're going to be taught how to do it all legally. But when they go to visit the site or the pages, they're confronted with, we're lobbying this MP and this isn't right, and this part of the prospecting code's all stuffed up. Like that's really hard to stomach and be with. I think for a lot of people, whereas I see the GPAA.
It all boils down to whether you're ready to be a lawyer or not, because that's ultimately what it comes down to, is how well you know the laws and how the intricacies and.
We're not. We're prospectors. We want to go dig holes and play in mud, right? So
yeah, but they're twisting arms into it, so.
Yeah.
That's we got a few comments here. What did Rob say? I just saw it here. Rob says, start a PE branch then, Chris.
I'm a prospector. I don't want to do meeting minutes. I don't want to.
No, he wants to be left alone when he's out there. I agree, man, 110%. That's the funny thing with doing the podcast and whatnot is originally our idea was we'd love to show the community what all these amazing people have to offer to the community. And truly get to know these people as a human to human like level, to where you truly understand who this person is and what makes them tick and things like that. And the funny thing is it took away a lot of my time to be able to go and dig and my time to be able to, you know what I mean? And I didn't really foresee that in the beginning. I did not foresee that at all, and over the last couple of years, it's grown into something just absolutely amazing and whatnot. So I have no regrets, but it's just funny to see, you want to do more for the community, but in order to do more for the community, you're putting in more time, you're putting in more effort, you're putting in more patience, So at the end of the day, it's, the more you put in, the more time you have away from doing what you actually love to do.
And so it's really important to note that you have to have everything. I'm going to swear. You got to have your shit squared away to do that, because so Jordan Peterson has a great quote which he says that who are you to give advice if you can't make your own bed in the morning? If you want to be a community leader, if you want to be someone who presents ideology, ethics, integrity, you want to bring that and you want to educate people about that and why it's important and how they can integrate some of those lessons into their lives. If you're not actively practicing that, then you're not the right person to be teaching it. And it's a very difficult thing to do. You're right. It does take away a lot of time. Like like I said, we can't go out now without being recognized. I went on a trip to the beach, right? It takes 6 hours to drive there. 6 hours. There's one town on the way. 6-hour drive, one town, right in the middle of it. We stopped in that one town. I got out of the car right next to a public toilet block. As soon as I got out of the car, a guy pulled up, got out, and went, "Oh, bogus prospecting. How, blah, blah, blah." I'm like, oh, okay, fine. I go to the toilet. I was going to go get a coffee from the bakery across the road. This town's got like 300 people that live in it. Go get a coffee at the bakery. A lady stops me. "Oh, bogus prospecting. I follow you for your boxes. Blah, 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 blah." I'm like, okay, cool. It's 2 people in a tiny town on the way to the beach here, right?
Yeah.
Get out of there. Get back to my car. This is all 15 minutes, right? And I had a ute with 2 blokes rock up behind me and jump out. "Oh, can we get a photo? We follow your channel, blah, blah, blah." 4 people, tiny little through town. And you have to think to yourself, right, that's what's happening every time I go out to the creek now. And if you want to be, like, I never intended to be like a community leader or something like that.
Yeah.
But if you find yourself in that position and you're going to go through with it, you do have to be aware that you're going to have to dedicate time to it, that you're going to have to dedicate a significant proportion of your time to it, because it's important. There's a reason I talked about earlier that you can Google anything you want. Like, it takes 30 seconds to look up any piece of information ever written, right? So we're past the age of information. The age of information was all about collecting the world's knowledge and putting it together. Right now, the only new information that isn't available is right on the cutting edge of whatever field that is. Right now, we're in the age of curation. So we need people to go through the ginormous volumes of information that are out there, pull out the relevant, important parts of that, and translate that in a way that everyone who's interested in that thing can understand. And that's what's given rise to the influencer. That's what's given rise to the people who find myself in your position, in my position, where we are trying to create communities centered around specific information.
Right.
And not everyone signs up for it, but some people are really suited to it. Some people have that natural ability and they might find themselves lumped in that situation. And that's where they have to make a choice. Because if you want to be a leader in the prospecting community, you're going to have to give up your panning time. To take the old guy who's never done panning in his life and he's just retired and he wants to do panning, and teach him how to do that. Because he's following you on YouTube or he's following your community to learn those tips. And so you don't get to pan that day. You get to show him how to do it, which is fantastic, but you have to make that choice. You can't do both. You can't half-ass it.
No, and I totally agree with that. You know, in the beginning, and I'm sure you thought the same way. You know, in the beginning, it was kind of like, you know, I'd love to be able to dabble in it and get new people interested. And, you know, my personal situation was my friends and family have zero interest in prospecting. And, you know, I had a family member of mine kind of teach me the ropes and, you know, give me something before he passed away. So it got me really hooked. And, you know, it just snowballed into such a positive thing, you know, and we've done certain things where, you know, this person was part of this dig or this, that, or the other, and they just are smiling from ear to ear. And it just makes me want to do it more and more and more. You know, it's just so fulfilling to see people just so excited, so happy to go and spend some time at one of our little shindigs and just have an absolute blast. Because when I was a kid and I'd go out, you know, with my uncle or whoever it was, and I'd go and do this shindig with them, I was just on top of the world, cloud nine, you know, and that same kind of euphoria feeling I want to be able to present to as many people as possible, because life's too short not to have fun, not to enjoy all the hobbies that you do, not just prospecting, all the hobbies that you do, take pride in what you do, enjoy it, and so there's, like you said, there's a responsibility that comes into that whole situation, and that is making the time. If you're going to do it, don't do it half-ass. And I agree 100% on that. I've fought back and forth. You can ask Arrow. I have fought back and forth with that situation. We've only been rocking and rolling for 2 years, but there's been times where that kind of situation arises where it's like, man, I'd like to go out and do this weekend, but we have this, and this that we have scheduled, so we have to get it done. And it's
when you want to do things all the time to keep people engaged and have fun and develop the relationships, you run yourself out of time.
Yeah.
So you got to learn to pace that. So.
Yep, that's exactly it. That's why that comes back to that quote. Who are you to give advice if you can't make your own bed? It's about making your own bed first. You have to fill your own cup first. You have to do the thing that enriches your life before you can move forward and enrich someone else's life. Right. Because there's all sorts of psychological toxicity in doing the latter. If you go and you're trying to live your life vicariously through other people, you will never fulfill yourself. And figuring that part out for you is so incredibly important. As I said, you've got to have your shit squared away, because you can't do that if you're in a position where you don't know what you're about. It doesn't mean you have to know what you're about, but you have to be actively working towards it. And if you find yourself in a position where you're part of a community that you would like to do more in, that's where you have to start asking those really hard questions about what you actually want from it. It comes with everything: relationships, friendships, so on and so forth.
Everybody knows, sacrifice, and
see, but
that's what I call work, is sacrifice.
But there's different sacrifices with that situation. We can go for it.
Okay, so I'll leave you with something with sacrifice, right? Because I think sacrifice is a really interesting one. You get to choose your sacrifice. If you have a choice, this is the really important part. You have a choice in your life about what you want to do. Now, a lot of people will go on and they'll talk about things like, oh, I've got kids, oh, I'm married, or I'm in this bad relationship, whatever. You still have a choice, right? And that choice is in the sacrifice that you make. What do you want to sacrifice for your goal? Now, sacrifices are going to happen regardless of what you do. You can either let it happen to you and be bitter and resentful about being in that situation, or you can choose it, because whilst it might suck, at least you chose it. You chose that sacrifice.
Right.
And that's key.
No, and that's
how many times has that gone through your head when you're way that fuck out in the bush?
Daily.
Well, and
I call it embrace the suck.
Yeah.
You just gotta embrace it. Prospecting is hard work, regardless of what. It doesn't matter what kind of prospecting you're doing. It's hard, bitter, soul-crushing work most of the time. And if you're not willing to go through that suck, you're going to have just a bad time, right? Because at the other end of it, there's gold. And there's adventure.
The adventure acts like a numbing agent.
Well, that's the funny thing. That's the funny thing. Chris, I'm sure you saw us, some of our pictures from our 9-day road trip. We ended up, he knows what I'm talking about. I
think he's seen them before.
Oh no, I'm not going to bring the pictures up. I'll leave the pictures. I'll lay those to rest. I've bugged you enough with those. But no, speaking on the topic, embrace the suck is like the 9-day road trip. We had planned it out enough to where, we were looking at good weather, so on and so forth. And part of that trip, it was some of the crappiest weather, just all around bad luck the first 3 days. And, it never got to a point where we were like, you know what, we're done. It never got to that point. And that's the embrace the suck kind of thing. You know, we kind of found laughter.
It's
kind
part
of
of the
found
adventure. It's part of the adventure.
exactly. Like Arrow says, when all of Rob's clothes is soaking freaking wet because he left it in the corner of the tent, it's all about the adventure, Rob. Remember that. It's all about the adventure. oh man. Yeah, he came out.
I didn't say the adventure won't be a bitch.
Man.
I mean,
that was a good adventure, right? Like,
oh man. Yeah,
oh
but yeah, you know, on that same topic, it's like, you know, there is that responsibility, and you know, over the last couple of years, at least with PB and with what we got going on, that responsibility has grown massively. You know, and it's surpassed anything that I would ever imagine it would be. And, you know, as far as responsibility goes, it's huge because your word is your bond, you know, especially in this community, in a lot of different communities, it'd be like, you know what, whatever. He doesn't want to go dirt biking this weekend. You know, maybe we'll catch up with him the weekend after, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But with the prospecting and mining community, your word is your bond. You know, and when you say something and you don't do it, that is solely looked upon by specific individuals. And I agree with them on the aspect of, you know, way back in the 1800s, it was a handshake. That was your agreement, your contract, your this, your that, whatever the case may be, for whoever you worked for, the mine you worked at, yada, yada, yada. And so some of those things that's been instilled in the old timers and passed down and passed down and passed down is still, you know, your word is your bond. And, you know, at the end of the day, that's huge responsibility. And you got to be able to know how to situate that responsibility, because like everybody here, people watch you, people see what you're doing, people see how you react, how you talk, what you freaking eat, man. I mean, people, like you said, you know, you can go on Google and find anything at your fingertips within seconds. And, you know, so that responsibility plays a massive, massive role in, you know, influencers. And, you know, influencers wasn't even a thing. And because of all of these folks that were like, you know what, I want to share knowledge, or you know what, I want to show these people what I do, and this, that, and the other. Well, now influencers were born, and that responsibility went from nothing to 100% responsibility. You could say something one day or show something one day, and that could influence a decent to massive amount of people for them to go and try to do the same thing. Now, just because you succeeded doesn't mean they're going to succeed, you know. So as far as like the responsibility role goes, you know, I've seen that, you know, over just this last year in particular. Our first year when we first came out, you know, it's kind of like, yeah, you know, this is pretty cool, you know, this is awesome, yada yada yada. And then second year came around, and it's like, okay, well, now we have group digs, now we're doing this, now we're, you know, trying to get sponsors and this, that, and the other. Now there's a massive responsibility, and moreover, an honesty thing to it, you know, because people will call your bluff. Social media is a cruel, cruel son of a gun. It really is. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you do in this world. Social media is just, you got that one person or the two people that are just in a shitty mood, and you know, you're sitting down eating something and you read it and it just puts you in a shitty mood. You know, so
we just gotta go to like the really big articles, the national articles, and be a troll.
Before we go into that, we got to break this down, right? Because he just, oh man, okay.
Chris is like, oh shit, here we go, right, guys. Go. Pandora's box.
Sit down. Oh man, you're stressing me out. Yes. So that, all of that comes back down to a thing called personal responsibility. And literally what I said at the start, making your own bed. Because it's a lot easier. It's just a lot easier not to lie, right? Like it's a lot easier to speak your truth, maybe cop some flack for that, some splashback from people who disagree or whatever, or it might not be the popular opinion. And God knows I've pissed off enough people to know that happens. That is an easier thing to deal with than being caught in a lie.
Right.
And I think everyone learns that. Well, you would hope that most people would learn that as time goes on. So as people progress through their lives and they get caught in lies and whatnot, and there might be little innocent bullshit lies and they get caught in them, and it's just fucking awkward when they could have just said the truth and have been done with it. Maybe upset someone, maybe hurt someone's feelings, maybe revealed something about themselves, but easier to deal with than being caught in a lie. And integrity comes from that. What integrity is owning up to your successes and your failures in equal measure. So it's like, look at this. This is the thing I've worked out. It works really good. Here's the piece of information, right? That's you celebrating your success. By the same token, is I tried this. It didn't work. This was my results. That is just as, if not equally as important, which is why you see so many of my videos that have no gold in them or hardly any gold or like a little because it doesn't work out all the time, and that's fine. So that personal responsibility, owning up to your success and your failure, is key to having integrity. An influence. This is what I said about you have to make you get to choose your sacrifice, right? So if we go back right to the start, we talked about you're going to have to sacrifice your time panning or your time in the creek or high banking or whatever it is.
Right.
If you find yourself in a position where you want to be a more active member of the community. So if you find yourself in that position and you're choosing to make that sacrifice as an influencer, you would hope that that same person who's choosing to make that sacrifice would have integrity, because there's a lot of people that don't. A lot of influencers are all fake, right? Like, they are. There's heaps of people out there who fake it.
Oh yeah, that's
because
what I'm
they
saying.
want views and they want money and they want all the crap that comes along with it.
Yeah.
So the difference between those people is that you can see someone who's got integrity. Now, why do we value integrity? So why do we value it? Why is integrity so important for a person that you're following? It's easy to crush integrity, right? Like you're saying, if you lie and you get caught out in that lie,
because then
your integrity gets stripped from you.
Because then you're not questioning your own integrity.
Okay. Yep. So you mean someone watching you would then question whether or not...
No, as somebody watching you, and I would expect you to have integrity.
Yeah.
Because why would I follow someone who didn't have integrity?
Right.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I'm asking, right? We haven't answered the question of why it's important. Like, why is integrity important?
Because it makes you question your own.
So I would argue differently, right? Because if I've watched some people in the prospecting community who clearly don't have integrity and have got followings online, and it doesn't make me question my own integrity at all. So,
well, I mean, like,
I think
if you're following somebody, because you like them and you know they're bad.
So you're questioning, I'm trying to get clarity around this. So you would question your own judge of character.
Essentially, yeah.
That makes sense. That does make sense, right? Because if you put trust in someone, okay, so that breaks it down nicely. All right. So if you follow someone because you think that they meet your own moral and ethical standards, and then they are proven to be I don't use the word a liar, but I mean someone who is not of core values that doesn't share your core values, they're proven to not share your core values, it makes you question whether or not you can trust anyone else on the platform. Yeah.
Well, and that's exactly what Arrow's saying, and that's the shitty thing about today's day and age is there is a lot of people who are in that boat. Let's be honest. You can go on YouTube and find tons of them who are 100% bullshit. But people, go
this
for
is
it.
the thing, right? So integrity is important to an influencer because you're curating knowledge. You're collecting the world's information. You're putting it in a nice, neat little package for people to digest so that they can then run with that information and do something with it. So whether that means you're making makeup tutorials or teaching people how to pan for gold, if that integrity and that trust is broken, then you can't trust what they've said, and then you have to worry about what you've integrated into your life or your procedure from their stuff. So it's like the lawyer's term, product of the fucking toxic tree or something. I can't remember that. But
fruit of the poisonous tree.
Sorry,
fruit of the poisonous tree.
That's the one. Yeah. So because we all integrate things from people, right? We all have friends that influence us in ways that we sort of integrate a little bit of them into us. We go, hey, Sergio's smile is really infectious. I'm going to smile more. Hit my drink bottle real hard. But you integrate those little things. So if you're following someone for knowledge, then realistically you're trying to integrate that knowledge into your own repertoire. You're trying to integrate that knowledge into your
into your own self, Your own
database.
I think every single human, we're humans at the end of the day. I think every single human does that to a certain extent in their life with the videos they watch, with the, whether it be a workplace, hobby, passion, this, that, and the other. I think every single human does that. And unfortunately, with today's day and age and the way that social media is, people are influenced in the wrong ways. Yeah. I really do believe that. 100%.
So what I was trying to get to eventually through all that is that we understand. So now we understand kind of why integrity is important.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest things that I've struggled with on my channel again and again and again has been the cost of that is monumental because you're giving up your right to internal privacy. Because when you get to the step, so I have almost 500,000 followers on Facebook. I have 65,000 followers on YouTube, and I have like a couple of other pages that might round up to 10,000 followers, right? So we're talking 600, almost 700,000 people following me, just following, not views, right?
Right.
When you put an opinion out there, you have to justify it. Because if you're going to put an opinion out there, you can't just say, I believe blah, and then not give a reason for it. Because what that does is it invites in all those questions that would probe for your integrity. That's what you end up getting. Like, oh, this guy's full of crap because I know blah, 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 blah. So you have to give your logical, like your pathway, your reasoning to that opinion.
Right.
And a lot of the time, that comes down to you having done some introspection and looking at why you believe what you believe. And then you're sharing that with the world. You're taking that internal monologue, that internal thought process, and you're giving it out for free, right? And it means that you are constantly giving out parts of yourself. And
your emotions, your emotions are one of the biggest things that you give out consistently. I'd have to say your emotions are a huge thing because the videos that you have, for instance, this is a good example. And I'll let you keep going with that, with what you were saying, because you're right on the button. But I just had to stop you for a second because emotions play a massive role in your videos, in what you're trying to give the community, in everything that you're a part of, everything that people are watching you do and watching what you say is massively wrapped around your emotions. If let's say you made a ton of videos and you never smile in any of them, you never laugh, you never chuckle. Let's be honest here. Well, are you really pushing out positivity? Are you pushing out something that someone can back? You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So with that, what you're giving away is massively plays a part with your emotions.
It's personal.
Exactly.
Why when I meet people out on the creek, it's why when I met those people traveling to the beach, that they come towards you like they know you. So for TV, any kind of video format, any kind of radio, podcast, whatever it might be, only works one way. Like I go to the creek, I film my video, I sit in my room, I edit my video, I hit upload on YouTube, and that's it for me. So I've had the interaction of precisely zero with anyone out there, but 100,000 people see it. So suddenly 100,000 people get to experience something that I got to experience on my own. And part of me doing that, like all my videos, they have opinions in them. They might be right or wrong. Regardless, I still got to do that here's my reasoning behind why I'm putting this opinion out.
Right.
And that gives away part of your personality. It gives away what makes you drive, your thought process, all that sort of stuff. So on the viewer's side, they're getting to interact with you like it's a two-way conversation almost. But for me, it's not like that. I'm having to think in my head when I'm filming a thing, okay, people are probably going to want to know about this. And then I've got to talk about it, but it's all done internally. It's all one-sided. It's all just me. Right. So I meet someone out there, and they feel like they know me. And that's it's
Weird.
Great for them, and it's slightly confronting for me because people walk up and they don't even offer their name when they say hello. They're just straight into it. Oh, Chris, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, cool, what's your name? Like, hello.
Right.
It skips. I don't know if you guys watch the UFC, but Paddy the Baddie has a YouTube channel, and his YouTube channel is great because he walks around wherever he is in the world, and people want to get photos with him, and they walk up, can I get a photo? And he turns around and looks them dead in the face, and he goes, what's the magic word? To every single one of them. And they all go, oh, please. And it's like, it's just this moment where they realize that they've skipped some of the formalities, that he doesn't know them like they know him. And I just got I never expected to be in this situation, right, ever in my life, to have that many people following my life and what I'm doing. And now I look at that and I think to myself, I really empathize with anyone who's in a situation that has a vast following, because I really understand why people like movie stars and actors and singers and all that
do what they do and how they interact.
But they all do it with each other, right? Like they all interact with people who are on their same level because because it would be very difficult to go out there and find someone who wouldn't be enamored with what they think you are as opposed to who you are.
Who you really
what you've presented as opposed to who you actually are.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And that's one of those things that I think over time you don't realize until you get to a point where you have people enjoying what you're broadcasting, people enjoying what you're doing and what you're presenting to them, but it takes time as a human to really grasp that concept, because in the beginning you have no clue, you have no idea. And then when that does happen to you, you're like, how do I handle this situation? And I think that's one of those things that comes with time. But at the end of the day, and I always say this, we're all only human. I would like to have a human-to-human interaction with somebody. I don't care how freaking famous I am or how famous this person is or that person. At the end of the day, we're all humans, and being able to still have that same human to human interaction versus, oh, hey, Chris, let me get a picture with you. Da, 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 da. I would take it differently. I'd be like, okay, like, you can't say, hey, my name's this. I really enjoy what you do. And I know everybody's different and whatnot, but at the same time, like you just said, that's why Hollywood actors do what Hollywood actors do. That's why Hollywood actors hang out with other Hollywood actors. It's the same principle, same concept, and
and I think there's a reason why there's a reason why there's a 27 club. People who get really famous, really rich, really quick without any coping capabilities for it. There's a reason for that, and I have like the tiniest, minuscule taste of what that would be like to be that hyper famous, like just a dot, right? And it can be super confronting. It really can be. I'm out shopping with Fern, and you're getting asked for photos or autographs, and it's flattering. It's really nice. It's exciting. It's all that positive stuff, but it doesn't make it any less confronting because you're not prepared for it, right? You're not ready for that kind of interaction when you're trying to select cheese.
Seriously.
I'm sure that makes you more anxious too. Every time you go out, you're like, all right.
Yeah.
Who am I going to meet today? Well, that's the funny thing. That's the funny thing is like this. I keep bringing up this road trip because it's a prime example. Like, I always bust Arrow's ass all the time, and we'd mess around. And I call him Smeagol because his lighting was messed up or whatever was messed up, and I just kind of mess with him a little bit. And when he was on the way over to my place here in Washington for us to go on this 9-day road trip, I felt as if I already knew him. You know what I mean? Like I've known him for years and this, that, and the other. So it plays kind of in the same concept, and then when he showed up, it was like, hey, dude, what's going on? And, it's just, I'm sure it was a massive overload for you, Arrow. When you showed up, it was just like, hands on deck. Chris was over. Rob would, this fucking guy. This guy. So it plays into that same thing. Like, me and Rob were extremely excited to meet him. Chris, one of our mods was extremely excited to meet him. And the funny thing is, like I said, is I would call him Smeagol all the time, just busting his chops. And he gets out of the truck, and this guy's like 7 foot freaking tall.
I'm not 7 foot fucking tall.
Dude, and so what I thought of him from social media, from speaking with him and things like that, completely different. It was a completely different kind of experience. And, that helped me kind of learn and comprehend, okay, well, people look at you a certain way when it's across social media, when it's on videos, when it's this, when it's that. Yeah. And then you get into the real world where you actually meet them face to face, and, it's a different experience. It's just completely different, and
it's again, this comes back to that whole you have to choose your sacrifice thing, because I've never had a bad interaction meeting a fan ever. They've always been really nice, really excited, happy, enthusiastic people who have a genuine love for either prospecting or the outdoors or photography or dogs. Like, there's a whole heap of things that these people have been into, and I've been able to talk to them on a one-on-one level, and it's been fantastic. The confronting part is knowing that you're walking down the street and people like know who you are. Yeah. And when you're in the middle, and it's you got to put it in a realistic situation. I already need a bloody service dog to go shopping, so you can imagine that the flip side of that is that when, like, I'm in a supermarket and I'm just trying to pick my groceries out, or I'm queuing up to order food, or I'm queuing up to wait for a service or whatever it might be, and someone wants to talk to you, but my brain's already preoccupied with, hey, I've got to stand in this line for the next 10 minutes and try not to freak out or not have it melt down, or I've got to make sure Fern does what she's meant to be doing. There's other stuff going on in my world, and I can't imagine with the experiences that I've had what it would be like to be one of those hyper famous people who can't go to Kmart.
Well, that's the funny thing is the social interaction, and it's in every community, not just prospecting and mining. But the funny thing about it is, a lot of us are introverts, and a lot of us are extroverts. If I said that right. And the funny thing is like, for me personally, a lot of people would see me online and think I'm a massive, massive extrovert. But deep inside my little core, when I'm at the store and I'm with my kids and I'm getting groceries and this, that, and the other, I probably got a billion things going on in my mind. Oh, I got to pay this. I got to do this. I got to da-da-da-da-da-da. And it just, it's, to run into like an old buddy or this, that, and the other, it's kind of like you're just like, oh, hey, you kind of just, you don't know what to expect. You don't know what to say. You haven't seen them in a long time. They see you on social media. It's just, and so you almost are like, would rather avoid the situation. And that's not like to be negative in any way, shape, or form. But at the same time, it's the whole confrontational kind of situation, and I think
humans in general aren't designed for surprises. We're really not. Like, we're just
seriously. I agree with you there.
And I wouldn't change it for the world in terms of. I think the thing that's helped me a lot has been that it's happened gradually. It's happened really gradually. So, you get. I got 10,000 subscribers, and once every 4 months, I bump into a local subscriber, and they're like, "Oh, I watch your videos on YouTube," and I get out there and I do prospecting and blah blah blah, and you have a chat to them. And then it was like once every 2 months, and then it was once every month, and that like it really gradually just built up. So it wasn't like I got thrown in the deep end where you had a whole bunch of people all at once coming at you. It was a real steady build up. And like I said, it's been great because everyone has been super respectful. Everyone's been very, very genuine and kind, and just excited, I suppose, to have the opportunity to talk about something that they are into, and know that passion is going to be reciprocated.
Right. Well, and that's the thing too, is you truthfully don't know how meeting a new person is going to go. But the thing that I can honestly say with at least the PB community and prospectors and miners in general has been extremely positive from top to bottom, from when we created PB all the way to where we're at now. I mean, even outside of PB, every single person that has reached out to all of our mods, myself, has just been absolutely phenomenal. Absolutely just all part of what we're doing, and just a phenomenal experience. Every single person I've met. I mean, Arrow, he's a prime example. Rob, he's kind of, no, I'm just kidding, Rob, I love you. But no, Rob, Tina, Sergio, Chuck, I mean, all these people that I have met online through a freaking social media page of all things, we've been able to like all be on the same level and enjoy each other's company, and like whether it's online or in person, and it's just been a phenomenally positive experience. I've through thick and thin and everything that's been going on in the last couple of years, even with PB and outside of PB, 95% of it has been absolutely positive and absolutely phenomenal. And I think
it's funny who you meet online, because
it's crazy, man.
Your parents being like, "Oh, don't talk to strangers online. Don't go visit strangers." Now I summon people from the internet, random strangers, to go hang out with.
Yeah, don't go on Yahoo chat line. That was the biggest thing when I was a kid. Get away from those chat rooms.
Yeah, stay away. You'll get murdered.
Now
seriously. I'm like, do you want to go meet me out in the middle of nowhere and hang out?
And then you're like, you might bring a big knife too.
Yeah, seriously.
That's guaranteed. I've got a shovel and a knife.
That's the funny thing is, at the end of
you're
the
good
day,
at digging holes.
Well, come
Yeah.
along. We need someone like you.
Yeah.
We'll do it in shifts if we need to. I don't mind. But that's the funny thing. Meeting Sergio, he was what 9 hours and 10 minutes away. He was, we had this kind of round road trip going through Washington, Idaho, Montana, yada yada yada, and we had talked to Sergio for quite a while, and we had talked to Jeff. Shout out to you, Jeff. We had talked to these guys on social media. We haven't ever met them in person. We made the leap. And of course we were 3 guys deep. So we're like, hey, if anything happens, we'll band together and, we'll be good to go, No, I'm just kidding. But,
as long as you didn't offer you $50 for photos, you're good.
But no, we drove 9 hours to meet someone we've never met before in person. And it was one of the most, and I'm speaking for me personally, it was one of the most phenomenal freaking times I've had in my life.
Clearly your clothes didn't get wet. Hey.
Well, yeah, exactly. Well, let me tell you, there was 2 instances with this situation, right? I had probably over 100 mosquito bites all over me. I was sunburnt, probably 3rd degree burned. I don't doubt it one bit. So when we had gotten down there, I was already cooked. We were driving every day, 3-4 hours. This guy was sleeping 95% of the time, getting good restful sleep.
My man, Jesus,
this guy.
I get in the car and I'm like,
no, this guy.
Yeah.
He's a unique one though. We would be driving 2-3 hour drive, and he would just start having a great conversation, and we'd start getting deep into a conversation, and like, yeah, man, like I freaking like that too, and da 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 da, and then I look over and he's out. I'm like, dude, what?
There was a lull in the conversation, and I was just like,
I'm like,
all right, I guess this is over.
Yeah, I was like, and it would happen every other 2 hours or 3 hours. You get back up and you do his little stretch thing and eat some chips or whatever. And
that's a thing for me. If I'm not engaged, I'm going to sleep. It kind of sucks because it pisses me off. Like when I was in school, we'd always sit in the I'd wake up. We there yet? No. All right, couple more hours.
Out. But no, the moral of the story here is going out and meeting people, and having that confrontation / like not knowing. It's kind of like one of those things beyond. You don't know what to expect. When someone comes up to you, you don't know what to expect.
No, and you can always learn stuff from people too. I think that's the most important part about it, is that if you're meeting someone because you think that they may be worth pursuing a relationship with. Right. I think that we don't necessarily view chance meetings like that. We view relationships as like friends and family and romantic partners, and that's kind of where it ends. But you have a relationship with every single person you meet, and it's up to you whether or not you're going to learn something from that interaction. So it could be very basic education, like, I know how to hold a conversation, or I can start a conversation, or it could be something much deeper. And you've got to give it that chance. Especially if someone else is willing to invest their time into you. Someone wants to give you some of their time. That's a very precious thing. It's the only thing we can't make more of. You make more of anything else in the world. Can't make more time. If someone's willing to give you some time, then you should reciprocate that until you, at the very least, until you know what their intentions are. It's not to say that every single relationship that you have is worth investing in. It just means that it's worth giving it the opportunity, because you don't know. You have no idea.
Right. Well, and that's the thing with time is like, when, and I keep bringing back the whole subject with PB because these topics hit right on the money with those points, giving folks time and really seeing what they're about and who they are. That's the least you can give an individual as someone that's trying to help better the community, as someone who is an influencer, giving someone that little bit of time to really see who they are or what their intentions are. you never really know what could spawn out of that in such a positive way. And I can't say that enough. You know, when we do the group digs that we do, we end up meeting some phenomenal freaking people. Some people that you could be like, you know what, that's going to be a friend for life. That's going to be someone who I will know for the rest of my life. You know, and giving them that little bit of time to see who they are always is worth it. Always is worth it. The bad ones naturally weed themselves out. I tell all the guys and Tina, I tell
PB mom.
PB mom, yeah. I tell everyone, the bad ones naturally weed themselves out. Humans have a tendency to if they have bad intentions, they will weed themselves out every single time and time again. It might take 3 months, it might take 6, 9, it might take a year, it might take 2, make 3, 4, whatever. But naturally, as human beings, if you are someone who is trying to do things in a negative way or things that are not helpful to the community, people see that. And you naturally get weeded out.
Yeah, 100%. And that comes back to the integrity thing, right? That we talked about before.
Right on the button.
It's literally that, because it's not just influences, obviously, where that's important. In your personal relationship, you want the other person to take personal responsibility for their own actions.
Yeah.
And if someone who takes personal responsibility is someone who has integrity. And for all the reasons we discussed earlier, it's important that happens. And you're right. People who don't have integrity will weed themselves out because they don't know any other way. And they're the same. It comes back to the whole locks only keep honest people out. Those are the people that will kick in your front door. They're not your, they're not your run of the mill, took advantage of a situation kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
Those sort of people will end up by the wayside all on their own actions. You don't have to do anything. You just wait.
No, seriously. So, so the second part of the podcast, I wanted to kind of switch things up a little bit, and we were talking kind of pre-show a little bit. I wanted to talk about equipment. You know, we talked. I had the guys last time we had you on the show. They kind of talked a little about equipment use, what you like, what you don't like, what could be changed, what could be left alone, things like that. I think on the second segment of the podcast, I'd really like to speak about equipment because I think, again, in today's day and age, I think there's so much equipment out there and there's so many different options in this. It's not just the good old rocker box. It's not the good old sluice. It's not the good old this or the good old that anymore, you know? And I know everybody has their own. Chris is like, oh, fuck, here we go.
I'm probably going to ruin the second half of your show in a couple of paragraphs. I'll summarize probably we can go through it, but I'll summarize my opinion really quickly. I have now been in the fortunate position to try pretty well everything, I've done most of it to some degree, and I've used some of the best metal detectors on earth. I've used some of the worst metal detectors on earth, and best pans, worst pans, best looses, worst looses, blah 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 blah.
Well, it boils down to personal preference.
No, it's even more simple than that. There's a photographer that I follow, and he's done some really impressive work for advertisement, but just his personal pursuits for photography have been amazing, and he encapsulated what I feel about prospecting equipment perfectly when it came to photography gear, which was, he said, I couldn't think of anything more boring than discussing what camera I use, because it's not the camera, it's the photo that I want to create.
Right.
So my question to you is, where do you want to dig gold up?
Well,
where do you want to dig gold up? What's your dream?
In my backyard.
Right? Okay.
In my backyard.
Can you make that dream happen? Can you bring that to fruition?
Maybe.
No, and I agree. I think my whole thing that I try to make an example of um, is one big massive thing, right? One thing in general, and that is to try to help every single newcomer that I possibly can, in hopes that their chance
Yeah.
at being successful is higher.
Yep.
And when I ask multiple different people, hey, what did you like? What didn't you like? I'm not talking about specific products, specific brands, things like that, yada, yada, yada. What I'm trying to do is basically bring to the community, hey, at the end of the day, it's your own personal preference. It really is, because I know old timers that are using old school equipment, and they say they do just fine with what they're doing, and they don't want to change it up. And that's perfectly okay with me. It'll always be perfectly okay with me. The newcomers coming into the prospecting and mining game is primarily who I try to help the most, as far as explaining the different types of equipment out there. And the reason being is because, just like all of us, when we first started, you could go on any freaking website all across Google and buy whatever, right? Does that mean that it's going to work? No. Well, a little bit of that happens to deal with experience. If you don't have experience, yada yada yada. But at the same time, being able to steer people in a better how should I put this? Being able to help them slim down their options for something that's going to be more successful for them starting off, versus, like you said earlier, throwing them in the shark tank and having them spend thousands of dollars on equipment they'll never use 3 months down the road.
I put a video up on my second channel, Spud Engineering, about which investment would make you more money in the same time with the same investment. So what I was talking about was, we're investing in gold. You can spend $25 or you can spend $8,000. Which investment was going to make you more money?
Right.
The answer for me was a $25 investment.
Right.
So I compared the $25 gold pan against an $8,000 metal detector.
Right.
In the same time frame, the $8,000 metal detector had found me about 17 grams of gold. The $25 pan had found me 2.5 ounces.
Right.
When you talk about equipment, and you have to put metal detecting aside for a brief moment. If you're talking about alluvial equipment or dry earthing, anything that involves processing dirt, it almost doesn't matter what you buy, as long as it's not a gimmick.
Right.
And when I say that, is that there are a lot of people out there trying to reinvent the wheel. You get a lot of people who will say that this solves this problem and this solves that problem, and this is the best in gold recovery, and blah, all the advertising crap that comes along with that. But there has never been anything wrong with a normal gold pan, ever, not ever. Right. I have literally gone to the creek with a shovel, cut a square of grass out of the bank, put it in the creek, built a sluice box of rocks around it, and thrown dirt into the river. Collected the grass at the end of the day, tipped it into a pan, and all my gold was in the grass. You don't need equipment. You need knowledge and skill. And knowledge and skill is recognizing that you don't rely on your equipment to extract.
To get the gold. Yeah. No, I see exactly. I see exactly. Yeah.
You can have the best pan in the world, but if you throw dirt from your garden in it, if you don't live in California, you're not going to get any gold.
Right. No. And of course, with asking that type of question, there's a lot of different points that go into it. And that's, kind of what I was saying is experience plays a role. The type of material where you're at plays a big role, if it's gold bearing or non-gold bearing. There's many different things that play a role, but I think that one of the biggest things for me personally is letting the newcomers know, hey, don't waste your money on this. Don't waste your money on that. Don't waste your money on this. And the reason being is because go for it.
That right there is the exception to metal detectors. What people need to understand is they need to look at their environment first. What is their environment telling them? If you live in an area where there is no water, right, then you are limited to dry washing and metal detecting. They are your two options. When it comes, pretty much all dry washers operate the same. Like, there's not really been any major advancements in that technology in the last 100 years. It's the same tech, so it's a little bit better at recovering fine gold. So whatever dry washer suits your fancy, unless it's a metal detector. But then you have to look up your local history and understand your geology and your environment before you go down the route of even purchasing a metal detector. Because if you live in an area with no water, but it's really fine gold, then there's no point in purchasing a metal detector because you're not going to find anything. You're going to spend thousands of dollars on maybe finding the one piece that's out there in your area, whereas you could have spent that money on travel and getting to the ground that you want to work.
Better ground,
the same thing goes. The sleuth boxes, right, and pants is that if you're living in if you understand your environment, you know that this is a open claim that I can go to and prospect, and it's really rocky and it's really hard digging and it's really annoying. I'm going to buy a trommel, not a high banker, because it's going to handle the rocks a lot better. It's asking those harder questions. Pretty well, all cans, sluice boxes, matting systems, they all catch the same amount of gold, right? Maybe within a few % of each other. It's not going to matter on a micro hobby miner's scale whether you lose 5% or 2%. You're not going to notice that difference. It's very unlikely because it's a difference between getting a 1.1 gram and a 1 gram day. It's not
I think right. I think it boils down to and this question is such a hard question for that very reason. Is there's so many different principles that play a role into that specific question. So there is no right or wrong. I think just like anything. If me or you go to Walmart and we're just trying to buy a new pair of shoes, we just go to Walmart or wherever. I mean, just go buy a new pair of shoes, $20, $30, no big deal.
Yeah.
Then there's those people who go and buy a pair of shoes specifically at a certain place that's a little bit more expensive because that's what they're after. They're after something, that's more unique to them, that suits their needs more, so on and so forth, instead of a general basis. And in that whole equipment situation, it's kind of the same thing. It's skewed just a little bit here and there, and anybody could, argue with me till I'm blue in the face about it, as far as that goes. But there is those certain guys that are weekend warriors, and I feel like some things don't work for them and other things work for them, But as far as like the newcomers go, there's so much crap out there right now, just horrible equipment, just garbage equipment.
Well, a lot of the time it's not even the equipment. It's the lack of understanding of how gold drops.
Well,
so you can have the best equipment at all, and if you don't understand how gold drops, it's not going to work for you. You can have the shittiest equipment and understand how gold drops and do rather well.
Cleanups. And get the best.
So that's a knowledge thing, right? That's it comes down to that knowledge thing. So if we're trying to educate newcomers, people who have never picked up a pen before, or people who may have only been in the hobby for a short while, and they're looking at buying some very expensive, possibly more complicated equipment than a basic pen and a basic sluice box, no matter what kind of matting is in that sluice box, then what you need to tell those people is that you need to spend the next 12 months with that equipment, prospecting as many places along your area as you possibly can. because what that's going to do is give you an education in the ground. It's going to tell you what you really need. Are you struggling to dig in the ground? Okay, you might need to buy new digging tools. Are you struggling to deal with clay? You might need to implement a new washing technique.
Right.
But you don't know that until you know your ground. And this comes back to know your ground. Forget the gold, because gold works the same anywhere in the world. Anywhere in the world, it doesn't matter. Outside of metal detecting, you're relying on gravity, which is exactly like how gold drops, right? That's what you're talking about, which is that gold falls the same right across the globe. Once you understand that principle, you don't need to worry so much about the gold dropping. What you need to understand about is how to efficiently work the ground that the gold is in, because it's working the ground. You're not working the gold. You've never been working the gold. You're working the ground. How do I shift that rock? How do I break that bedrock up? How do I get to my location? How do I deal with these rocks? How do I deal with that clay? I've got too much sand. There's heaps of overburden. All those questions come into it. How do you manipulate ground?
Well, and that's another key thing that I want to bring up too. And I've discussed this with all the PB guys and Mama Tina. It's the same exact concept that I'm trying to have more folks understand is, if I dig up dirt in my backyard here in Washington versus go over to someone's backyard in Arizona or Indiana, it's not going to be the same. It's going to be completely different. So learn the ground that you're on. You know, like Arrow, you just said right on the button, dude. Experience is key. Before you go looking at expensive equipment and you go waste thousands of dollars, go buy that cheap pan. Go buy that cheap pan and scrub the shit out of it before you use it. I've seen some people on PB who have shiny pans. There's plenty enough people to tell you.
If your pan is shiny, you're doing it wrong.
So for those that are just starting out, scrub the shit out of your pan. We're off the topic now. That topic is done. No more shiny pans. But so I mean, and the thing is with the whole equipment topic, it wasn't more so brands or who's better or who's not better, because at the end of the day, like I said, and you see this all the time, Chris, in the PB page, is there's people using all sorts of stuff and they have it so dialed in and they've been using it for 10, 15 years and, their capture rate is great and this, that, and the other, and they're happy with where they're at. And for those folks, I applaud them 110%, because if you're happy with the way that your equipment is operating, then that's all that matters at the end of the day.
The exception to that is metal detectors. So
I can agree to that.
Really important point, right? This is a really important point, and I'm going to try. I don't know how many people are watching, but for anyone who's watching, this is the number one thing about metal detectors that everyone needs to understand. The first thing you need to decide about a metal detector is, are you going to be hunting for gold or coins primarily?
Or pop cans.
Yeah, all them, like 100%. So if you think you're going to be looking for coins, you're actually buying a pull tab machine. But
if you're looking for gold, it's a nail machine.
or a bullet machine.
Yeah.
So you need to decide coins or gold, because if you're hunting for relics and coins primarily, you don't want to buy a machine that was designed for gold. If you're going to buy a gold machine, you need to understand about how often you're going to get out to use it, because gold isn't like coins. It's not everywhere. It's in very specific locations for detectable gold pieces. And if you live 4 hours from the gold fields, you're probably going to use that machine like once every couple of months, and you're not going to be able to dedicate the time to it. So you're probably better off buying a coin machine and just enjoying what's around your local neighborhood, right? So you need to decide. Are you going to be hunting for relics more, or are you going to be hunting for gold more? And you're going to buy a dedicated machine. The next part is, I know everyone has a different budget. Some person's cheap detector is someone's really expensive detector. Don't buy anything under $400, $500. Spend at least that much on your machine. If you're into gold prospecting, you're going to have to spend at least $1,000 before you get a machine that works properly for it. And it's not to say that a relic machine can't hunt for gold, but the programming in the control box is everything. That programming is going to give you the best opportunity to hear the piece of gold in mineralized ground. If you run a coin machine over that same ground, you're going to struggle because the machine isn't going to be able to handle the minerals in the ground. And the reverse of that is true for gold prospecting machines. Gold prospecting machines don't have target ID. They don't have discrimination. And that means that when you take them to a park, they're going to pick up every little piece of aluminium, scrap foil, metal-coated plastic, ice cream container, like every piece of junk possible.
That's what happened with my Seaside, Oregon trip. My golly, I'll never do that again.
Yeah.
So Arrow, yeah.
You pick your right machine, and then you dedicate to that craft. And you want to spend as much money on your gold prospecting machine as you possibly can. So if you live somewhere like Arizona where there are detectable nuggets and there's no water and you're going to go out with a machine, the more money you spend on that machine, the more gold you're going to find. That's not true for coin machines. Any machine above probably $500 will work exceptionally well. Sure, there's some advantages to buying a more expensive machine, but you don't necessarily need to. But with gold prospecting, I'll give you the one example. I have an SDC 2300 and I have a GPX 6000. The SDC is a $4,000 machine. The 6000 is an $8,000 machine. I hit ground with the 2300 for years. I hit this ground with that machine, and I pulled out maybe 5 or 6 little nuggets. I went back to one spot that in that ground that I had found gold with the SDC, and I pulled out 100 nuggets from that one spot. You get what you pay for when it comes to gold machines. A gold monster will work great. It's $1,000 machine in the right areas, but it cannot compete against something like a 6,000. It's just, you get what you pay for. That's the only exception.
And that's the funny thing too is I got a good example. So Arrow decided to pull a smart one and leave his metal detector over at my place and totally spaced it. And I had
it was time. It was time. I was like, I got time to drive 5 hours. I'm out of here.
Yeah.
Halfway home.
So I had a Seaside, Oregon trip coming up, family vacation. And I'm like, you know what? I'm sure people lose all sorts of stuff on that beach. I'm sure I can get a little bit of time in, to swing it a little bit. And boy, was I ever wrong on what I was doing. By golly, I cleaned up more trash off that beach in an hour than I've ever probably cleaned up in my entire life. And the shitty thing was is I was happy to dig every piece up. I would dig and dig and dig, all super excited, and get down, and it's a freaking pull tab or a melted freaking can, and I'd get disappointed. I'm like, well, try it again. And I'd go for hours and hours, and about an hour, it was like close to 2 hours in, I was like, okay, I can't fit any more shit in my pockets. I didn't bring it back with me. I was like, yeah, I truthfully, I want to get into metal detecting because it's just such a phenomenal thing. And I'm a total newbie when it comes to metal detecting. I have no clue what I'm doing. Of course I've done my research and this, that, and the other. And it was just the funniest thing, man. And that didn't deter me whatsoever to go and do more metal detecting. It's just, I think it's more of like the thrill, right? You get the beep, and you're like, oh shit. You start digging down. You're like, oh hell yeah. But I didn't put 2 and 2 together. They light fireworks off on the beach, bonfires probably constantly. I was just so freaking blinded by that, that I just was like, hell with it. He left it here. I might as well use it, But yeah, no, as far as, what you're looking for specifically as far as metal detecting goes, make sure that you do your research on the machine that you want to purchase, and you know, a little bit of research on the ground you're at, if it is placer or if it is this or that, you know, and that kind of gives you a better decision on spending a chunk of money. We have a couple comments here that I wanted to post up onto the screen real quick. Let's see. So this is a good comment here from Evergreen Prospectors. He says, I've spent tons of money on equipment and found lots of gold. Then the laws change and I can't use it any longer. Lame. That is another key aspect that plays a role. As far as
my whole thing about that is men in suits shouldn't make rules for people who wear flannel every day.
Right.
Seriously. I got another one here from Matthew Rudisil. He says, Dollar Tree pan and screen.
Yeah. Hey, look, I don't know if you've seen the episodes where I found a nugget with a plate. I just went prospecting with an aluminium plate. Like, you don't...
See, and that's the funny thing. I've seen some of the funniest shit, and that's what I love about the prospecting and mining community, man. I've seen people take some of the weirdest shit out to the field and actually find gold. We're talking about a fry basket as a strainer. Like, you know, like who in a million years would have thought, oh, I'm going to go to a restaurant store and get a fry basket or...
Well, it's all about understanding how gold drops.
No,
I can make gold drop with that.
I need 3.
Or I can process material faster with that.
Yeah. No, that's
if only it worked like that with metal detectors. I'd like to go to a $2 store and pick up a metal detector before that. That'd be good.
Yeah. We got another comment here from Mr. Joseph Knowlton. He says, Chris here hooked me on prospecting. I loved his story about the hobo that panned every day with his coffee cup. That's absolutely awesome. I mean, the things I've seen that have been used blows my freaking mind. Back to the topic that we were talking about with old timers. Peter Valentine says the old timers became experts with the equipment they had. They really did. They did a phenomenal job. I mean, if you look up any of the history books and stuff like that has what's left of the California gold rush, the gold rush back east, the gold rush up in Canada, they had next to nothing, and they were getting phenomenal. And mind you, and I know people will argue with me, there were some areas where they would call it potato nuggets because there was nuggets. You could pick them up. So, you know, so I get that aspect, but
I think we all wonder about that every now and then. What would it be like to be walking up?
Oh, dude. I would faint, dude, if I was walking somewhere in Nevada and I saw some sort of a potato nugget. I'd probably faint. No joke. 100%.
I'll give you something to think about, right? In 100 years from now, we'll be the old timers.
Right.
And with the way that the price of gold is going up, you're going to have people thinking like getting gold in Australia is about $2,500 an ounce at the moment. And some people will be like, oh, they only got $2,500 an ounce for all that gold. And they were getting heaps of it. They would have been loaded. Same thing. They were only getting $4.50 an ounce back in the day.
Yeah.
So, and 1983 it was like $300.
Yeah, and the funny thing is we actually have people in PB that I've personally talked to that's like, yeah, I sold my gold back then. I wish I would have kept it now, and da-da-da-da-da. I'm like, well, how many ounces did you sell? Oh, I sold everything I had, 9-10 ounces. I'm like, are you serious, dude? You know the value, you know, and they didn't know. They didn't know.
Yeah, but that's with everything. I mean, I had original Star Wars toys that go for ridiculous amount now, and I'm like,
go into that for days. Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh,
nobody knows. Nobody knows.
Regret? You want to talk about regret? I want to talk about regret. I found a 1973 FJ40 Toyota full drive, right? Yep. In a shed in the middle of the bush on this guy's property, and I asked if I could buy it from him. It ran. He had He had a box of spare parts for it as well. So I bought it off him for $2,500. Got the box of spare parts, rebuilt the carburetor, head gaskets, blah blah blah, the whole lot.
Yeah.
Rebuilt it all, and then it had rust in the body and it had a few things that we were working on. And I did a road trip in that car, and it was a fucking nightmare. It was so painful. It was so bad because the car just wasn't ready, but I was enthusiastic. So
we've all done that before.
Yeah. Anyway, so I sold it, right? I sold it. Now I've done suspension, and I've done a winch, and I've done driving lights, and I rebuilt the engine and all that sort of stuff. But I did most of the work myself, and in parts and whatnot, maybe $5,000 I'd spent all up, including the purchase price of the car. Today, I looked them up recently. I was going to go buy one. I was like, you know what? It's about time that I revisited that project and had another crack at it. I looked them up today. You cannot buy one here in Australia for like less than $30,000.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was, and those ones are like rust bucket crappy
Oh,
things.
yeah,
Mine
just
was
frame.
They're like 45, 50 grand. Man.
Yeah, no, it's pretty crazy. You know, way back in the day, another big thing that came across to the miners was clothing, food. There was a list. Who put that list up, Arrow? Someone put a list up in PB. This was like 6 months ago, and this was the actual cost of goods.
Yeah.
The actual legit cost of goods for like flour, this, that, and the other. And it was insane to see that because an ounce of gold was basically like nothing.
Yeah.
They you know, it was insane. The clothing that they had to buy, the shovel cost more than an ounce of gold.
Yeah.
It was insane, you know. So it's like
Gadsy and I looked up meals that the old timers used to eat, and we found one from Alaska. This guy found a really ridiculously rich spot. He put a claim on it, and to celebrate, he went to the pub and he asked the publican to make him a really expensive meal. And they gave him 3 eggs and an oyster because they shot and ate all the birds. Eggs were super, super rare. Like, to have a 3-egg meal was ridiculous. Like, it was like the equivalent of going out and having caviar and lobster today.
Seriously, it was expensive. Yeah. It blows my mind, you know. So it's like in today's day and age, to find a potato nugget, I would faint because we know the cost of gold. We know how rare it is to find something like that.
The whole problem is, though, you find a nugget that big. I don't want to get rid of it.
I've got a solution for that. So I was lucky enough to go on a trip out to the Golden Triangle, and on that trip I met a guy who makes replicas of people's gold finds from the Golden Triangle for that exact reason. So he casts them in a mold, and then he makes them out of it's a mixture of lead and something else, and then he gets actual gold and overlays it on the top so that it looks exactly like the nugget that you dug out of the ground. And that way you can have it on display, or you can do whatever without fear of it being stolen, or if you sell it, you still got it, so on and so forth. That day that I met him, he was making a replica of a 155-ounce piece, which covered both hands. You hold it and it went straight across.
Oh, my gosh.
That's a house.
Dude, I'm just sitting in your hand.
It was found next to a barbecue pit in a park in central Bendigo.
That's just crazy.
See, that's the thing.
The guy with the coin metal detector missed it.
Get the equipment for what you're doing. Seriously. We got a few more questions here and a few more comments, and then we can take a quick 5-minute break, and then so what we could do is we can actually shift the equipment type of thing, and we can boil it down to folks asking you some questions, if you didn't mind.
Yeah, let's do it.
We have some really good questions here already. Before we go on break, I'd like to pop this question up. Geez, the comments are flying. I appreciate you guys. Unfortunately, I can't do two things at once. One famous saying: women can do many tasks at once and do them the best they can. Men can only do one task phenomenally. If that's not the truth, I don't know what is. I can ask any individual.
I'm not sure I've ever done anything phenomenally. That's the problem.
Yeah, I was giving us a little bit of a better score, but
The audacity.
yeah, seriously. Let's see here. I wanted to pop the question up on. Let me see if I can find it real quick. I can't find it for whatever reason.
He's
Here
trying
we
to
go.
talk and find a comment at the same time, so he
It's
can't
nightmare.
do them very well.
It's a nightmare. Yeah.
I had to tell him to take the gum out before the show started.
This guy. Oh God, here we go. Oh, okay. All right. I got you, bro. We got a comment here from Facebook user. It says, question for Chris. What's the coolest and most exotic thing you have found prospecting?
A 1849 Californian gold rush belt buckle here in Victoria.
Cool.
Wow. That's crazy.
I found, so there was a race course, an old race course. It's demolished and gone. You could just barely see it on Google Maps, the faint outline of where the track ran. And I did my research through some old newspaper articles, and I figured out roughly where the betting tent was. So they had like marquees there and places that they could go to place bets like we would today. So they had a bookie tent. And I found where the bookie tent was. And in about a 10 by 10 square meter patch, I found a ridiculous amount of silver coins. I think my record was like 14 in half an hour, like just in one little area. So heaps of silver coins, heaps of pennies, bits of jewelry, bits of watches, just stuff. I gridded that a dozen times. I did every angle I could possibly think of, and I went over it in different soil conditions, like wet, dry, blah, blah, blah. The last time I did it, I got no signals except this really faint little, it wasn't even giving me a target ID on the screen, but it was a consistent noise. I was like, all right, I'll dig it. I dug 12 inches straight down, and I pulled this buckle out, and it's got a skidder ship on it. A skidder, is that what it's called? Can't remember the name of it. But it's got a ship on it, and it's got these waves, and it's one half of the belt buckle. And I put it up in my community, and someone sent me a link to that exact belt buckle, and it was given to the Californian gold rush miners who left California for the Victorian gold rush when that kicked off. And they were the first lot of American miners to come over.
Wow.
Can you imagine how long that trip took?
Right?
Wow.
Oh, no. The history of that belt buckle, the reason they got it was the fastest boat available at the time. And the tickets on that boat were sold at like this massive premium. So, yeah. Yep. So I found some Californian gold rush's buckle here in my hometown, like 10,000 kilometers away.
That's phenomenal. That is absolutely amazing find. See that?
Just so you know, you were probably digging in the outhouse.
Oh, not my luck. Yeah, probably was.
Dropped his pants, got shot. And there you go.
Everything falls out of the pockets.
Oh, geez Louise. Yeah, so we have some more comments here, but what I'd like to do, everybody watching, let's do a quick shout out real quick, and then we'll go on the quick 5-minute break so everybody can grab a drink, hit the bathroom, yada, yada, yada. Let's do a quick shout out real quick. And then in the meantime, if any of you have any questions that you would like to ask Chris, Errol, or myself, go ahead and let's flood the comment section on YouTube, on Facebook, here on StreamYard. Go ahead and drop some questions, and we'll get them set on here and see what Chris has to say. As far as shout outs, let's go ahead and run through some shout outs real quick. Mr. Trev Dyer, thank you for being here. Matthew Russo.
Trevor, aren't you meant to be working, Trevor? He's one of my mods.
Is he? That's awesome. Oh, that's too funny. Let's see who we got. Don Wendt, Deb Hester, Randy Lewis, Gadsy, Greg Watson, Digger Doug Adventures, Mr. Dougie. What up, brother, man? Ted. Let's see. Tina, Fred. Wow, that was a little bit of a tongue twister. Stony Creek Spark Chaser. That's unique. Good to have you here. Evergreen, Matt Barkus, Muck Raker Prospecting. Good to have you here. Let's see who else we got in the building. Mark Fryer. Let's see. That should be it for now. All right. Well, with that being said, drop your comments. Drop your questions in the comment section. See, I can't multitask. See, that right there is a fucking example of me not being able to multitask. Men can only do one thing phenomenally, and I will stick to that till I am old. I promise you. Anyways, drop the questions in the comment section real quick, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's on Facebook. We'll get these things string across to Chris. And in the meantime, let's go ahead and take a 5-minute break. So we will be right back. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the second half of the podcast. Felt like literally, oh, look at him. Oh, my goodness.
Him?
I'm kidding. See, I was waiting for it. I was thinking he was going to just run with that, and I was praying to God that he didn't, and you didn't. Fuck yeah, that's awesome. We actually had a comment earlier from Don Went that said that because of you, he actually fostered a blue nose way back when.
God.
Yeah,
I love Don. Don's a good man. He's got the GPAA page.
no, so I have a chocolate lab that I inherited moving into the place that I'm at, and I originally am not gonna lie, this dog would get on my nerve every second it could. I would leave the dog alone for 5 minutes and there was trash all over the kitchen. And so I just didn't know what to do. I've never been a dog owner, so I did not know what to do. And mind you, this chocolate lab, his name's Happy, by the way, and he is the happiest dog. Every time I pull my truck into the driveway, he's just jumping, just waiting for me to come through the fence. And I'm like, thinking to myself when I first moved in, like, I've only been around this dog maybe like for a year, and this dog is like so unconditionally loving. And so, the first beginning, I was kind of bitter, like, man, this is tough. This is like another child. But then, here I've been in this place since May? It's October now, and just the last couple of months, being able to get that every day is such a good fucking feeling. Like you come home and that dog is just like unconditionally happy as shit to see you just because you're you. Like it's a phenomenal feeling. And so, I'm
gonna plug my phone in. Hang on a second.
Yeah, go for it. But yeah, so now every other day I grab some of the old Roy dog treats, and I'll sit there and I'll hand it to him. Good boy. It's funny how animals can do that for humans. I used to be, and believe it or not, a bunch of people are going to give me shit for this. I used to be a massive cat lover. Like, I've owned cats.
What is fucking wrong with being a cat lover?
There's nothing. No. There's nothing wrong with it. But for whatever reason, I feel like I was going to get shit for it, and I'm sure I will. But I've had cats my whole life, and cats have this kind of understanding, right, to humans. Like, if you want my love, you're going to get your ass off that couch and you're going to come pet me. If I don't like that food, I'm not going to eat that food until 3 days pass and the shit's starting to stink your kitchen up. Then I'll eat
that
it.
Sounds like a toxic relationship. That does not sound like...
I don't have that relationship with my cats at all. I come home and there's 3 or 4 at my feet. And I'm like, oh my God. I don't have no fans.
You found the 4 nicest cats in existence.
Of mankind.
Don't get me wrong. They do not give a shit. They don't give a shit.
But it's awesome what animals can do for you. When you're having a bad day and you get home and that animal just comes and snuggles with you. I know we're kind of off subject here, but at the end of the day,
what's up, buddy?
Just literally.
She said, I want to be on the podcast too. Come on, Dad. What the hell?
She's dying to go do some training. That's what she wants to do because that's how she gets her food. So she's pestering me for her food, basically.
She's like, Dad, come on. You ain't fed me for at least an hour.
Me.
Yeah.
I gave her a bone and she's taken it outside and buried it. So I know she's got food. She's just playing me. That's all.
She knows you're on a podcast. She wants your attention at the best opportune time.
Of course.
That's how it works. But yeah, so let's go through some questions real quick, and then we'll go ahead and wrap this up. We got some questions and we got some comments. I'd love to show. Facebook user says, I learned how to pan from Chris and Paulie. That's absolutely phenomenal. Chris is a badass guy. Like I said, we've had him on the podcast now for a second time. The guy is just down to earth.
I'm still trying to learn how to pan. I keep stuffing it up.
No, I mean, you're an awesome guy. I mean, over the years, your videos, the education that you put out there, I mean, overall in general, people like you for you. They could care less for what you do. They like you for you.
At the end of the day, if you can't, I've published over 650 videos. I've made probably 1,000. You can't do that level of work over that length of time and not be yourself. It'd be almost impossible to be a fake version of you if you were aware of it. You just can't. Like, it's not physically possible to put on a mask for that long and maintain it.
Well, people will see it eventually, like we were talking about, weed themselves out. You see those freaking videos of, you see a hand in the video and then they move a little bit of dirt and they pull this big fake ass nugget out. Like, like it naturally. But no, I mean, essentially, some of the mods that we have, Sergio, phenomenal guy. I love you, bro. They look up to what you do, and at the end of the day, it boils down to the human being situation, right? They like you for who you are, for what you represent. Like I said earlier, if you weren't smiling in any of your videos, you're just pissed off all the time. At the end of the day, you will have followers because they find it funny, but in reality, the mass base, the ticking heartbeat of the following isn't going to be genuine people, genuine followers, people who like you for you versus just entertainment value.
Exactly. You know what I mean? Yeah, literally exactly right. I have to say that about Paulie too, because Paulie's like that in real life. Like, if you've ever had the opportunity to hang out with him, I stayed at his house for almost 3 weeks, and then he stayed at mine for a couple of weeks. And the dude's exactly like he is in his videos. And that's why he's able to produce the content that he produces. You can see the people who aren't being authentic. When you create, as a content creator, you get a very good radar for picking up who's faking it. Not necessarily faking the gold, but faking their personality, faking what they're presenting to the camera. And there's reasons behind it. It's not all bad reasons that they would be doing something like that. There are plenty of reasons why someone might have to do that. I'm just saying that it's much easier for me to be me than it is to
be someone else.
Be someone I'm not. Yeah.
No, and I totally agree. That's one of the folks that we want to get on the podcast is Paulie. We reached out to him and he's reached back to us. I know he's super freaking busy, but
he's flat out, man. Like he's busy.
He's traveling quite a bit, but he's another phenomenal guy. I mean, his videos are hilarious as all hell. It could be 90 degrees out and this freaking guy is wearing a ski cap.
Yeah.
It's like, bro, like, come on.
He came over to Australia and he stayed at my house, and it's 44 degrees Celsius. I think that's like 110 or something Fahrenheit, and there's no shade. And we've gone taking him on a tour of these gold mining towns and stuff. And we're sitting in the guy that taught me how to prospect. We're sitting in his house. Now, this is an off-grid house, so it's solar power, water tanks, not connected in any way, shape, or form to utilities.
Right.
And it's cool inside by our standards. It's 30 degrees Celsius, so it's 14 degrees cooler than it is outside. And we're like, oh, this is nice. Paulie's sitting on the couch. I've never seen a human being melt before. He's slowly sliding down the couch, and he's getting redder and redder and redder.
You gotta understand.
Sweat is just pouring out of this dude's head. I got up and I called the neighbor, and I was like, can we come over and push a Canadian in your pool? And they're like, yeah, no worries. And I get him out there. I literally push him into the pool. He falls into the pool, and he comes up and he goes, oh, I never thought I'd say I'd be relieved to jump into a hot pool. Because it had warmed the pool water up.
I give that guy props, man. I mean, that guy, him and his ski cap, I mean, they're like, if you look at some of my photos digging with Sergio, dude, I took a T-shirt that was stinky and dirty as hell, dude. Smelled like the worst bonfire smoke you could smell. Took my hat off, laid that thing on so it covered my neck, put my hat on, and we took pictures. And I just didn't give a shit at that point in time. So for him to keep the cap on when it's over 100 degrees, I give that guy full respect, man. Full respect for that guy. Yeah, so we have a few, let's see, a few more questions here and then a couple of comments. Tina says, what was the biggest gold kiss you have found?
Gold kiss?
Well,
I've
gold
never
nugget.
found a gold kiss.
Oh my!
Woo! Call
It was
1-800-PB.
biggest piece of gold? It's complicated. It's really complicated. And that sounds dumb, but it is really complicated. I've done every type of prospecting I think you can possibly do, almost. And biggest piece of solid, chunky gold that I've ever panned was 3.86 grams. The biggest piece of gold that I've ever detected was the size of a soccer ball. It was not solid. It's a piece of ore that had been floating down from a mine and had gold all through it. But, yeah, so that was the biggest piece I've ever detected. But the biggest piece I've ever found was I found a really rich ore body that was going about $11,000 a ton. So we're talking about a vein that could go 2 meters or 400. I have no idea, but we found the lode vein. So, yeah, that's why it's complicated. The single biggest piece of solid gold is 3.8 grams, but it's more complicated than that.
I metal detected the mountain and it came back gold.
No, like literally. Like actually.
Mine and Arrow's eyebrows went to the back of our head.
Yeah, I was like, what?
My eyebrows disappeared. I'm like, wait, hold on, what?
Yeah, so
But the thing it's Australia. It's totally possible.
Yeah, no, and it, like legitimately, because when we did the test, this vein, the richest part of this vein is about 2 foot wide, but the vein in total that's containing gold is about 40 foot wide. So it's, as you get further out, it gets weaker. But you're talking about a really substantial deposit. So yeah, we've found some good stuff. We have, and we're talking about the ore that we've been crushing from that vein in the rich section. So just that real central line where the most gold's concentrated,
cream of the crop,
is going about 3 to 4 grams a bucket, and like a 10-liter bucket.
Jeez Louise.
So 2-gallon bucket.
That's phenomenal.
Damn.
That is phenomenal. That is absolutely phenomenal.
Well, that FJ's looking real good now.
Yeah, I still can't justify when I bought one for $2,500. Like,
that is hilarious. We got another question here. This one's for Arrow. It says, Arrow, have you panned for gold at the Raging River yet?
Oh, yeah, I've been there a number of times. I haven't been recently. Well, Raging River is pretty easy river access, and we all know what that means.
So you have or have not?
Oh, yes, I have, but it's much, going to the harder spots, the more difficult spots, you will have, better luck to find bigger pieces, so.
Embrace the suck. You'll get better gold.
Embrace the suck. See, I don't know with the embrace the suck, because I love embracing the suck. But when it gets to a point where your mosquito bites are getting mosquito bites, your sunburn is getting a sunburn, you're a fucking ginger. There's a point where you call it. And
I wonder
I
if
have a mosquito-borne virus from embracing the suck. So quit your whinging, go out and get some more.
No, I stuck it out. I definitely stuck it out. We were out there all day. We had a lot of fun. It was an absolute blast. But
yeah, but that's not what he's talking about, my friend.
Oh God, this guy.
Yeah, he's talking about the hour-and-a-half hike in. Climbing, dropping
the
in.
adventure is what it essentially is. It's the adventure of getting out to that point. Yeah.
That's the suck.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the funny thing too, is like miners and prospectors, we will go above and beyond to some of the most craziest places to go and find a little bit of color in the pan. Let's be honest. If you go home with 3 colors and you're bitten up to shit, you're sunburnt to shit, you've driven many hours, you've eaten nothing but gas station food, you're still super excited for that little bit of color in your pan.
Yeah.
That's the
I drove
honesty
to
to that.
Bendigo 3 times before I found gold, and that is a 3-hour drive there, 3-hour drive back. So it's 18 hours of driving that I did for a 0.1.
Jeez Louise. And
Yeah, but
still...
you probably saw some pretty cool shit.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, nah. It was mostly just... Not really.
It was 3 hours into the desert. And
Yeah, no,
there you go.
It's pretty boring driving.
For a
It's pretty
second there,
flat,
for a
sheep
second there,
farms, that's it.
for a second there, I thought Chris was gonna be like, "Oh yeah, you know," but he's just like, "No."
What? So you see, Paulie took you out, and the guys I go out with, we're all right below the border from Paulie,
Yeah.
so very similar stuff. So you see, man, the hike in there, it can be brutal sometimes.
It's shit. It's really bad.
And were you cold the whole time? Because
No,
no.
it was good. I was in a t-shirt most of the time. It was nice. It was a relief because I left in summer, so it was hot as shit out here.
Yeah.
That's the funny thing with Rob on the road trip, dude. Is the same thing. Every 2 seconds. Oh, would you look at that? Oh wow! Look at that. You see that? I'm like, yeah, that looks cool, man. Like,
bro, mountains. Oh my god! Like we've got mountains, but not like there. Not like
and that was the thing with
God.
Rob. Is Rob's over in Ohio, so to come and travel through all of Idaho, from literally northern part of Idaho all the way to the southern part of Idaho, travel that whole entire state. He had never seen all of that stuff before. I haven't either. I'm used to mountains because I'm in the Pacific Northwest. But for him, it was a different ball game. And every 2 seconds, he was like, "I'll be damned." And I'm like, "Yeah, dude, it's pretty fucking cool."
I can see. I think it was Mount St. Helens. Like you can see that. Is that the mountain I'm thinking of? Yeah, big fucking mountain, and you can see it from everywhere.
That's probably Rainier.
God.
It's probably Rainier.
Yeah.
Whatever it was, bro.
Yeah.
Bro, I was like,
it's crazy. Yeah.
My first time seeing it, I immediately went, that's why the villagers look up there and go, that's where the gods live. That's exactly what went through my heart. I was like, yeah, I suppose I'd take the gods live up there too.
I get it now. I understand. Yeah, that's definitely where the gods live.
Oh, that's too funny. We got a few more comments here, and then we'll go ahead and wrap this up. Tina said, I can't find it on the right side for whatever reason. Tina says, when you find a big chunk of gold, what's the first thing you do? You give it a kiss. Me personally, I probably will start doing that, but I shove it in my pocket. I shove it so far down in my pocket, that thing will not exit. I promise. But yes, that is another good thing to do indeed. Mr. Digger Doug Adventures, Mr. Dougie, he says, yeah, bro, miss you guys. Love seeing Chris on the channel again. Yes, it was phenomenal to be able to get him on the channel. Like I said, and I'll say it again, Chris is a phenomenal guy.
Such a busy schedule, me and all my nothing that's going on. So hard to get on the channel.
Hey, I tell you what, though, you keep cranking them vids out, man, and people love what you're doing. Let's see here. We got another comment here. Fred Messimer says, just want to say thank you, Chris, for all the information shared, the reply to your videos, and the time you put in to make it happen. Thank you for that comment, Fred.
My pleasure.
No, I actually
labor with frustration and sometimes love.
I agree 100%. 100%. I start with a list this big with shit with PB, and then it gets this big by like Wednesday. and then it's like this big by Saturday, and then I'm rolling over some shit next week. And yes, no, I totally get it. We got another comment here. Secret Streams and Fever Dreams. Hey, I like that name. That is a catchy name. Thanks for introducing Jaren and Arrow to us, Chris. Chris is a phenomenal guy. Like I said, I can't say enough.
That fella's been a subscriber of mine for quite a while, so he's probably jumped over from the post I put up. But yeah, you've got to get on to Prospecting Buddy if you guys haven't watched this show before, because he's one of my favorite communities on Facebook that I follow, and I think it's a valuable resource at this point that needs to stick around. If we can get you a few more subscribers, it would be good.
We appreciate it. We're working at it. We're doing it.
We're definitely trying our damnedest. At the end of the day, with the time that we're living in, you know, the more you can get kids and adults out into adventuring is massive. And I won't go too much into detail with this, but one thing that still sticks with me every single day is a group dig that we hit back east, and this kid, I don't know his age, probably 8 or 10 years old. And this kid had won a few of our drawings that we had. And Rob was one of the event coordinators that helped us out with it. And then we also had the owners of the property and things like that. Jim, shout out to you, big dog. But yeah, so Rob or whoever snapped a photo of this kid with all of his gifts in his hand, you know, this kid his smile was falling off of his face backward. It blew my mind, you know, and this kid was so excited, so like just involved in what's going on? Like, what is this? What is that? How does this work? How does that work? And that right there is like the next generation. That's like what we're trying to instill, to where the community gets better and better over the next generation and the next generation and so on and so forth. So that's what we try to do in PB. You know, we try to bring proper knowledge and whatnot.
I just had a thought. It's interesting that the prospecting community has been like no other community that I've been part of before. And I was wondering why that is, because like I've been part of a few, like four-wheel driving, camping, hunting, for outdoor rec with that sort of stuff. And then, you know, there's all the sports communities, whether you play soccer or football or tennis or whatever it might be. I think prospecting is a bit different because it's removed that element of interpersonal competition. Like you're not competing against someone. What you're doing is you're competing against Mother Nature and yourself. And you know that if you get another guy working right next to you with a pan, he's got just as much opportunity as you do. Like it's not, I don't know, there's a difference in that community and a difference in that community spirit. And that seems like a very unique opportunity to teach people stuff that isn't necessarily taught anywhere else. Right. And I'm not talking skill-based. I'm talking ethics, morals,
friendship,
interpersonal stuff. Yeah.
Well, there aren't too many spirits from our past that we can actually participate in and try to keep alive. You know, the prospecting spirit. And what if you get hooked? You know, you're going to be learning history. You're going to be losing geography,
it's
geology.
Not if, it's when. You know that, bro.
Oh, well, yeah. I've been out with some people that have been like, you dig all day? I'm like, yeah. And let me tell you, you can't wait to get to the bottom of the hole.
Yeah, seriously. No, I agree. No, and I'm glad you brought that up, man. And the brotherhood and sisterhood in the prospecting and mining community is crazy, you know, and there's guys who have been doing it commercially for years and the weekend warrior, and everybody has that same mindset. It's the same like, you know, common goal, common outlet, you know. At the end of the day, look at it this way. As humans, we typically, and I'm not saying this is everyone, but typically we have a 9 to 5. It's a 9 to 5. It's a this, it's a that. So many other things going on in our life. Children, dogs. You know, there's so many things going on.
She's totally not like him alive at all.
She's like, Dad, come on. No, we'll wrap this up quickly. But yeah, there's so many other things going on in our lives. And the crazy thing is, at the end of the day, is typically, even without prospecting or mining in the mind, going out and doing camping and floating a river and things like that, that's a lot of people's release. That's a lot of people's, I'm going to turn my phone off, or I have no service. So
I go for the no service because then there's no temptation.
Yeah, no, and majority of the places I've gone to, there's only been one place over in Kingston, Idaho that I've been to where I still had service. But essentially, the majority of humans like to go and get that natural release. It releases those endorphins. It releases chemicals in your brain that you're able to reset for the next week and face the challenges that you're facing the next week, and so on and so forth.
I like it because you're kind of interacting with the way nature works.
Well, there's multiple different ways in which someone will interact.
I mean,
not loud at all.
It's a form of communication. Reading the river, reading the topography, reading the geology, just kind of give and take, and
and that's the thing is the prospecting mining community. It's just a different ballgame. It's not like football. It's not like sports. It's not like, it's just its own thing. Its own kind of perception on the outdoors. It's a totally different ballgame. Totally different situation. You don't have to. It's all good, bro. If she's playing with you, don't worry about it. Clearly,
you don't know how loud this toy can get. I do.
All right, so we got a few more comments, and then we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Canine Preacher says, I just wanted to say thank you for talking about Fern's training. You're an awesome pet parent. Hope to see more of your/hers adventures.
I think that's definitely something that I want to do more of. There's a lot of misunderstanding when it comes to how do I say this without going down a deep rabbit hole? There are ways that you can communicate with your dog where they will understand what you need from them, and vice versa. And it's just not well-known public knowledge, and I think that's something that could be expanded on. So it's something I want to do more of, because ultimately that's going to help a lot of people right across the world, whoever ends up watching it and seeing it, have a better relationship with their pet, so their dog fits into their family better, and they can have that really positive relationship and get more out of it, more out of having that animal in their life. And not just talking about from an emotional level, but we're talking about, a dog that understands boundaries, a dog that understands what its role is within the family, and it will cause owners a lot less stress and owners to have a more enjoyable time.
Right.
Yeah. That's a very, very basic version of what that is.
No, there's much more to it. And my, me, myself, seeing what you have done in the past, because I watch your videos, I love your videos, helps me kind of understand my dog, Happy, understand him a little bit more and his needs and his, everything that entails with having him in the house and interacting with him as a family pet,
If you guys are interested in, the communication and building a relationship with your animal, you should really check out a movie called Buck. It's about a horse trainer. That's all I'm going to say. It's called Buck. Just look up Buck movie.
I'll look that up.
It's more of a documentary. It's pretty phenomenal.
It's only 21 and over. It might be some weird shit. No, I'm just kidding. Don't look it up.
That happens in Cancun, Mexico.
Oh shit! All right, a couple more comments here, and then we're gonna set this in stone. Don Wentz says, not a question but comment. Thanks for all you do promoting PTSD and mental health. Signed also broken. I don't know what that means. Yeah, so the last podcast we did, for those that didn't watch the last podcast with Chris, is the last podcast. He spoke about PTSD. He spoke about some of those bigger topics, and he got into detail with those and got into a very deep depth. Excuse me. And for those that are experiencing anything like that whatsoever, you can always reach out to any single one of us. So, Don, I appreciate you bringing that up. For those that did not see the first podcast, it's on the YouTube page. I mean, it's right there. Just look it up. He dives pretty deep into that subject, and I think it's very beneficial for anybody to be able to listen to what he talked about and understand kind of more into PTSD, because I think a lot of people in today's day and age don't really know much about PTSD. I don't think they know much about depression and things like that. So I think
there's one thing that I want to add to all of that, and I think it's something that needs to be talked about because it's not being talked about in the context that I'm about to say. I've not heard it talked about anyway. We have entered this generation of people who are now very consciously aware of things that may not be right with their nervous system. So whether that's anxiety, depression, PTSD, whatever that might be, we've entered a generation of people who are very aware of that, especially men. I would say it's not. I have to be clear about this. That's not to detract from issues that women may be going through,
right.
But there hasn't been as much work put into the male side of these issues as there has been with the women's side. And again, that is not to say that one is better than the other. It's just an observation about that. The problem with that is that there's awareness with no solution. So what ends up happening is people start embodying the disorder of their nervous system as a personality. And that is an incredibly dangerous thing to do. Like, just in the same way that you are not your occupation, you are also not your mental illness. Like, you're not an electrician, you are Jim, right?
Yeah.
Like, you are your own person. You are not your PTSD. You have a dysregulation of your nervous system, but that's not you. And I would say that anyone out there who's going through anything like that, if you have the recognition that something may be wrong, seeking to re-regulate yourself through things like EMDR, somatic experiencing. I think I talked about it on the last podcast.
Yeah.
There's a whole variety of things that you can do to help re-regulate yourself. You should actively pursue that as hard as you can, because what's on the other side of that is letting go of all of the crap that's been holding you back and moving on to the next thing. And so try not to embody that dysregulation as a personality trait.
Right. No, that was well explained, and I appreciate that. We have two more questions, and then we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Graham McKenzie has a question. Hi, Chris. Do you even struggle with the balance between going out painting for the enjoyment of it and overdoing it and digging like crazy and coming home wrecked?
Yep. Yeah. I put a post up on Facebook this morning about high bankers and why I don't think, if I had my time again, that I invest any money in them. You know, I've got a lot of stuff that I've talked about on my podcast. My show that's very public information, stuff about the PTSD and whatnot. But there's a lot of stuff that I've got going on in the background that's not public information at all. Physically speaking, I can't do very much anymore. And I am at a point now where, you know, in a 6-hour session out on the creek, I might do 20 pans. I mean, that's a considerable amount of work, but over 6 hours, it's not. Like, it's just not. Like, you should be able to do a lot more than that in those 6 hours. And I have to be super careful about how I choose to expend my energy, because it has persistent effects if I do overdo it. As in, it can take days to recover where I'm not able to do anything. You have to moderate it, and it's come with time learning how to do that and practicing it. It's a lot of people. I get a lot of comments. Oh, why don't you camp there? Why don't you stay and do more? I wouldn't have left. And people just aren't taking into consideration physical limitations that certain people have. Like one person's giving it all might look vastly different to your version of giving it all, and you can't expect someone who has a completely you can't expect to pit two people against each other, one who's got a perfectly healthy, good, functioning body and mind, and expect someone who doesn't to be able to do the same amount of work, even though they're putting in the same amount of effort.
Right.
So it's been a real challenge. It honestly has. There's been multiple times, like especially when I caught Ross River, that Ross River virus, and like the average is 20 years for the virus to be eradicated from your system, and I'm like year one. So that was one thing that I really considered quitting. I was like, I don't know if I can do this, because I physically couldn't walk very far at all. Like, no energy. It was a real challenging time. I'm still dealing with it now. Like, I can tell when thunderstorms are coming through. It like fucked my body up really bad. And there's been times where I've wanted to just stop because of it. And it's something that I think that people need to be more aware of as well within the community, is not to put pressure on people
to overdo it.
Yeah, because you don't need to. As I said, you don't need to buy a high banker. You don't. If you know where to dig and you've got the appropriate knowledge and you build up over time, you can get just as good gold panning as you can high banking if you put in the effort. But the effort is more of a research nature than a physical hard labor nature.
Right. Well, and we have a family member of ours, Stephen Bertrand. Shout out to you, brother. He deals with tennis elbow. That's one of the things that he deals with all the time. And mind you, he's an extremely hard worker. He's 80 pounds soaking wet, and this guy could dig a mountain out in the time you dig a quarter of the mountain out. And I feel for this guy, because there's weekends where he can fully get out and be himself and really run some dirt. And there's other times where, he has just a little bit of time and, he pushes himself pretty hard, but he also deals with tennis elbow from pushing himself as hard as he does.
Yeah. And that's something to be said about the whole mental health side of things that I talked about before, is that a lot of the time people who have, I'm not speaking for your family member. I'm not speaking for that. I've got to be careful here, I think, because I can't.
I think it depends on the situation. As far as folks like you, who go out and try to bring a positive example to the community, pushing you is not going to make you work any harder. Pushing you is not going to keep longevity in your life.
That I can't put my experiences and project them onto someone else and expect that experience to be exactly the same. So when I say I've got to be careful about this, I understand that I can only speak from my own personal experiences, but destroying your body in terms of pushing yourself past where you should probably stop is usually a symptom of dysregulation within the nervous system. And that's a very complicated subject to go down. But I would suggest that if anyone watches this and does that kind of thing, where they work past the point they know they should stop because they feel an outside pressure or maybe an internal, a very negative internal monologue about it, to just harden up and get on with the job, then I would suggest that all the stuff I've talked about in many other posts about seeking some kind of guidance for re-regulating yourself might be worth chasing.
Right.
Because, I still do it today. I push too hard and I realize and I have to back off. But before I'd had the opportunity to learn that sort of stuff, it wouldn't matter what happened to me. I'm like, nope, doing it. Like, nope, just doing it, right? Like, and you laugh, and I would be the same sort of, like, it used to be the same sort of thing, but now I realize how serious it is because
it's extreme.
That is a complete disregard for one's own health.
Yeah.
That is a complete mental shutdown about self-preservation. Right. And it's a really dangerous place to be in. It's a super dangerous place to be in because, you see people, the gym saved my life. But these guys out there flogging themselves, ripping their bodies apart. They're using a really positive thing for a really negative gain.
Yeah.
And it
affects them 10 years down the road, and they're dealing with this ailment, that ailment, and that's the key to it is not pushing yourself past the point of your personal exhaustion.
Yeah.
You push yourself past that, you will have repercussions. There's no ifs, ands, buts about it.
There's also, almost the reverse effect, which is you don't feel the need to get up and go do those things, or you don't have the want.
Yeah.
And it can be about digging. I've had a number of days where I've gotten up and I'm like, man, I'm just not feeling it. And I force myself to go.
Yeah, 100%. So that's the opposite side of the same coin. It's literally the same thing. It's just the opposite side of it, which is that you need to recognize when to push.
Right.
And recognizing when to push is the coin itself, right? So recognizing that you need to stop because you've gone too far, or recognizing that you need to do it because you haven't gone far enough. You haven't given yourself the opportunity yet. It's a really hard thing to master. It's a very difficult thing to master. And that only comes with a level of introspection.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. There's been a few times I've been out by myself and I'll look down somewhere and I'll be like, I'm going to go down there, and I'll get halfway down and I'm like, you're a fucking dumbass, Arrow. You need to get the fuck out of here because if something happens, ain't no one finding your ass for 3 weeks.
Yeah, that's for sure. All right, we got 2 more questions. One from Crux Prospecting. This is kind of a big one here. He says, my prospecting company is brand new and social media is my weakness. What advice would Chris have for someone who's just breaking into the scene and trying to get out there?
I'll just put it all out there.
Just let it rip, Tater Chip.
You need to have a very clear idea of what your goal is for having social media. That's the first thing you need. If you're going at this because, if he said a mining company, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to make some assumptions. If his main business income is derived from that mining company, then his main focus should be on his mining company. The reason, why would you have social media in that situation? Like, what's the point of having it?
He says prospecting community, so I'm assuming he's more along the lines of a prospector trying to release videos.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, so in that case, this is where you have to get really clear, right? In a business sense, if he was a mining company, it would all be about advertising the products that he has for sale. So, for instance, say he has a small-scale mining operation that he wanted to sell pay dirt from, you would build a social media brand around the mine so that you could advertise your pay dirt. So the ultimate goal there is to advertise pay dirt. But if you're looking to do what I do, which is from an influencer's perspective, what have you got to offer? So today's market, today's e-commerce, I'm assuming here that he wants to make a living from it.
Right.
If you want to make a living from it, what sells today is not a product, it's an idea. What idea are you selling? Like, what idea are you selling? You don't have to be different, but you have to be very clear about your idea. Because if you don't have an idea and you're just doing what everyone else does, it won't sell. I was really lucky at the beginning to get into prospecting when there were only very few prospecting channels on YouTube. And so I had it a lot easier to build a brand. Now I've learned a lot along the way working with a lot of different social media people around this stuff. And if you want to be an influencer, the first biggest thing is being clear on who you are for all the reasons we talked about at the start, having that integrity, knowing what you're about, knowing who you are and what you stand for, so that you can then share that idea with the world. And people, if it resonates, it'll resonate on social media with other people. Like, if it resonates, it won't resonate if you're not honest about it. If you want tips on how to go viral, if you want tips on how to make good videos and all that sort of stuff, there are so many resources on YouTube and they're all wrong. There's the magic button, the magic key to it is producing good content. What makes good content is you.
Yep.
Right? So if you're an animator and you make good cartoons because they're funny and they're well drawn and they look cool and all that, you'll probably do really well. But if you want to be an animator and you put your content out and they're not very well drawn and your stories aren't that interesting, you're not going to do well. And the same thing goes for doing prospecting content. Your content has to be good and polished. And the way you can ensure that's good and polished is knowing what you're about. And like everyone wants that magic bullet. Everyone wants that, like, how do I go viral and whatnot? It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. You will randomly, accidentally go viral sometimes, not on purpose. But if you want to do it consistently, if you want to have a big following, you want to get a lot of views, bring you to the front and then put that out. And it will resonate with the community that you fit into. You won't have to seek them out. They'll find you. They will. It's just a matter of time. And then if you want some really basic statistics to try and bring the motivation up a little bit, is that you won't make it until you've probably produced 400 or 500 videos. That's the average. 400 or 500 videos over several years, and that's when you'll start to get some traction. But It's consistent work. You've really got to dedicate yourself to it. It's
a lot of work.
The way it is.
No, that's a good explanation, and I hope that solved the question that you had. Our last question of the evening, and mind you, I apologize, I can't get to all the questions. There is a plethora of phenomenal questions here. I love all of you guys. I really, really do, and I appreciate all of you guys. But the last one for the evening would be from Stash Prospecting Adventures, Mr. Rick Stash. He says, question for Chris. Do you mine for crystals there too?
No. In my area, there's an amethyst mine in the nearby area. There's heaps of gemstones in Reedy Creek and in the general area around it. I know of a couple of quartz crystal mines. I know, there's plenty of spots you can go for them. They just don't interest me enough. It's just something that it doesn't take my fancy in the same way that gold prospecting does. I think if I was given the opportunity to do it at a professional mine, as in a full-scale crystal mine, I would love that kind of opportunity to try that. But I'm not about fossicking for them in the same way that I am for gold. It's just not my thing. That's it in a nutshell.
I hope that answered your question, Mr. Rick. So for all of you guys that are watching right now, I would be willing to bet 100% of you are subscribed to Chris's channel, Bogus Prospecting on YouTube. If you're not, get your ass over there. What are you doing? Come on. Let's make it happen, Captain. And then for those that don't know, we got the PB website. Jump on the website. Go to the PB Facebook page. You can find the website. If you can't find anybody in your area, that's what the website's for. Jump on there. Find somebody in your area that you could dig with. Maybe they own a claim over there. multiple opportunities across the board. So with that being said, we were supposed to do a giveaway. We've been rocking and rolling for quite a while now. With that giveaway, we will go ahead and do that giveaway Monday, and I promised that it's going to be a phenomenal prize. Well, it is going to be a phenomenal prize. With that being said, I'm going to be doing the live on our PB page. So if you're not over on the PB page Monday, you're going to miss out. So with that being said, I appreciate you, Chris. Errol, I appreciate you. And every single one of you watching the podcast this evening, I really appreciate all the love and support. Let's keep this thing going. But with that being said, you all have a good night. Chris, you have a good day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Still daylight.
All right. See you all on the next episode.
See you guys. Thanks for having me.
Yes.